Louis Knuckles, President accounted for.
John Kelly, Project Manager, accounted for.
John Boyd, Treasurer.
Larry Bennett, engineer.
Denise Miller, Chair. As far as I know, Missy Hernandez is supposed to be here for Mr. Fumero. He will not be here. And Mr. Kelly, did you get the recorder or the phone with a speaker or no?
We do not have a
Okay.
phone jack.
He didn't know. All right. He was going to be here with us via the phone, Mr. Fumero. But being that we don't have a speakerphone, that's out. So, Missy has not reached you, Mr. Dwayne?
Last time I talked to her, she said she would be here.
Okay, well, let's stand up and do the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the meeting agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, and substitutions of the agenda items? None? Okay. Let's adopt the agenda. Can I hear a nomination? I'm waiting.
Madam Chairman, I don't know what was on the agenda. I've been absent, so if Mr. Lewis is okay.
On the-
with 14, I'll make a motion.
Are you okay with everything, Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Go ahead. Your motion.
Make a motion. Second.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda's passed. Approval of meeting minutes, March 28th meeting, last month.
Make a motion. I'll second it.
Okay, let's vote on it. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that was fast. Comments by the public. Roberto V. Perez. Come up, please.
Yes, my name is Robert Vladimir Perez. I'm the owner of 180 South Cabbage Farm, right here in Cabbage Farm by Canal Number 4. I own the property there, and I've had issues with the ditch since 2007 that I had the house built there. Prior to your administration, people were aware that there was issues with the drainage on that ditch. I came and I spoke to Mr. Dwayne this week with regards to the issues that I've been having with the drainage there and the way it's been taken care of. And at this time, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Dwayne and Mr. Joshua. They were out there and they cleaned it up, and I went over with Joshua some of my concerns. One of my concerns is that that pipe is too low. It's always been too low. Even when they clean up the ditch, either I get water there sitting there and it turns moldy and I have problems, or we don't have drainage there. Now I have 2 pumps in front of my house. When I purchased the property, there was only 1 pump. Now I have 2 pumps. And I don't mind having 2 pumps, even if those 2 pumps run all the time, as long as we don't get flooded. And yeah, last year, I got flooded the worst. And I have the same problem with the ditch behind the property, and so on and so forth, right down Canal Number 4. It's an issue that Joshua is aware of it. Mr. Dwayne is aware of it. They say they're gonna work on it. And again, I appreciate them taking the time and at least trying to get it clean for me at this time, but I just want you all to know that, you know, what my concerns are, that this needs to be addressed before the rainy season comes. We need to address this.
As long as the manager knows it, that's fine, and I thank you for coming up and thanking the staff.
No, I really appreciate it. They came right out that same day and they cleaned it up, and at least now it's clean, you know, and I can try to maintain it as much as possible. But right now, as we stand, it's still plugged, you know, it needs to be drained or whatever, but they're gonna work on it. They said they're gonna work on it again. I appreciate their time for coming out so soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff reports? Go ahead.
Follow up with the engineer to see the elevation in that area. See if it's, because according to what I heard, if we run an elevation check, we find out the discrepancies why the water is not moving. So, yeah, look into it.
Louis, do we have that binder? Thank you. Managers report, please.
April 2nd, we put out 9 loads of shell rock on Kendall grade. Material was rolled in, graded, only patching the holes. We didn't do the whole thing. We put out approximately 45 cubic yards.
Hold on, they don't hear you. Put the mic closer to you.
We put out approximately 45 cubic yards of material on Kendall, fixing holes out there on April 2nd. We cleaned in the culverts from Arboleda to Olivio and approximately 11 other roads that was in between. We continued on Kendall on April 3rd. We put out another 9 loads of shell rock, graded and rolled them in, and estimated 45 cubic yards of material. We mowed the side of the road on Pine Cone, Live Oak, and Jeanette, and boom mowed Vertus Street. On April 4th, we once again worked on Kendall. We got a lot of work. Put out 11 loads of material for approximately 55 cubic yards, patching holes and graded and rolled that in, and continued mowing Jeanette and mowed Arboleda. We worked on cleaning and repairing signs. We had approximately 7 signs that was repaired and cleaned. Most of them were on Cabbage Pond. On April 4th, we put out 2 loads of material and holes on Kendall for 10 cubic yards. We graded and rolled them. We brought the grader back in early that day. We had a tire problem, had to have the tire fixed. We went and put riser boards back in at pump 9 and 10. Someone had pulled them out. We got them put back in. We cleaned around the dumpster and the debris area. We mowed the side of the roads at Deer, Elk, Ball Cypress, Riverside, Live Oak, Palm, Willow, and Jasmine, and picked up trash and worked on sides on Cactus Pond. On the 9th of April, we continued on Kendall, putting out 11 loads of shell for an estimated 55 cubic yards and holes on the street. We mowed Riverside, cleaned the bathrooms, and picked up, getting ready for meetings and stuff, and picked up parts from town. We boom mowed Pine Cone, cleaned into the culverts, and tires went out on the excavator and had to stop to get tires on the excavator repaired. We cleaned signs on Dale Club, Cabbage Pond, fixed the sign lights at the Monterey entrance. Also on the 10th, we fixed the holes in Hacienda, repaired the signs on Cabbage Pond and Bald Cypress. We continued on Kendall, putting out 6 loads of shell rock. We graded and rolled that for 30 cubic yards put out that day. We changed the blades on the boom mower and then mowed Del Central. On April 11th, we boom mowed from Arboleda to Veranda, and we mowed the side of the road to Cabbage Pond. And we graded and rolled perimeter to Del Sur. You know, that's all you have on your papers because we had to turn them in early for the packet to put in. But from April 12th on, I've got some more if you want me to continue. It's just not on your paper.
I think you've been very detailed.
Do you want me to continue? Because that's all that's on your paper.
This will be fun.
Okay.
I know that the auditors are here. Do they go before all of the reports? So that you could leave early? Or what?
What's that?
So that you could leave earlier?
Doesn't matter, whenever you want to speak up.
Okay, let's keep it for last. No, I think
Let them go? Okay. I just realized it now. I have one question, Mr. Wayne. You said on when, it's at the middle of your paper, when and put their riser boards back in risers pump 9 and 10. 2 out of on each side. Isn't there a way that you could put that so that nobody
We're
could
gonna build
tamper?
locks for it. Me and Fernando went and looked at it the other day, we discussed making a lock for it.
Okay.
I just hadn't done it yet. We thought we had materials in stock and we didn't. So
Yeah, I talked to Mr. Bennett about that. I told Mr. Bennett what had happened. And I asked him to see if he could look into that, because obviously somebody took them off for a reason. I don't know what the reason was for, but, you know, to see if, you know, what's the change in the water level down on my end. Because you saw it, you were there, and Mr. Bennett saw it. I mean, I'm like 12, 14 feet down. And I don't know if you were able to find anything out about that.
We haven't yet, Fernando, but we will be working with Kelly and looking at that.
Excuse me. Hello? We can't hear.
There you go. I gotta get my glasses.
Okay. So, Mr. Tuscan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. You should all have a copy of the green book and a set of graphs. For the audience, there's audits up here if you care to have one, and a copy of the graphs that we're going to go over. I'll just spend a few moments on the audit itself, and then we'll look at the graphs.
Were the graphs anywhere in the deficiencies?
What's that?
Were the graphs anywhere in the deficiencies?
The
Mentioned.
these graphs, you should have a copy. They just basically are going to give you an idea to look at the numbers, how the year turned out. The deficiencies are in the back of the audit.
Because I'm looking at a map, that's why I'm asking you.
No, that's not mine.
Okay, okay.
You need one?
What do you about this?
Yep. All right, if you flip into the book, it's 2 pages past the table of contents. That's the auditor's opinion, and I just want to make sure you see the opinion.
What page?
2 pages past the table of contents.
This time.
Up at the top left-hand corner, it says page 2. Is everybody there?
Mm-hmm. Page 2.
Right, the paragraph that says opinion, the top line over towards the right, you see the words present fairly in all material respects. Those are the key words to an unmodified opinion, and just to remind you, that's the highest level of opinion an auditor can issue, sometimes called a clean opinion. Certainly the one you want. Now, flip 2 more pages and you'll see a section called Management's Discussion and Analysis. Because of all the reporting requirements, I mean, this report's about 65 pages long nowadays, but this little section that has the Roman numerals on it, it's about 5 or 6 pages long, is a synopsis or a summary of the whole audit, and it gives you a comparison of this year versus last, and it has to be written in non-accounting terms. So if you ever can't remember the details of what happened this year, that's a nice little easy to read summary. And if you're ever talking to the public, that's the section to pull out and use as a handout, because it's a nice easy to read comparison this year versus last.
What page number is that?
It has Roman numerals. It's just
Roman
2
numerals.
pages right past where we were.
Okay, I see it.
And it's about 5 or 6 pages long. Okay?
Yeah. Somewhere.
Now we're going to head to the back. If you look at the top right-hand corner, you know we have to test internal control and compliance, and we did. So look at the top right-hand corner, and you'll see on page 46 the conclusions for the internal control and compliance auditing.
Compliance and other matters, right?
Pardon?
Compliance and other matters?
Yes, sir. So right above that paragraph, if you see where I have highlighted, it said we didn't note any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weakness, which were things that might have led to fraud or something like that. We didn't see that. But this next little paragraph right above the title, Compliance and Other, it says we do have comments, and Ms. Miller mentioned deficiencies. Those are the comments we'll go over in a second. But in the compliance paragraph, you see down here, there's the conclusion. It does say that we noticed items of non-compliance. And if you remember last year, we have to test a laundry list, roughly about 60 items of compliance with statutes and your enabling act, your bylaws. And there were some items that were in non-compliance, and we'll go over those. If you flip to the next page, we have to test how you hold your cash. If it's in the accounts that are authorized by statute. We did that. The third paragraph, you'll see the word complied. Everybody see that? So you have your accounts.
Page 47, right?
Yes, sir. See that right here?
Mhm.
Complied. Third paragraph.
Okay.
So if you would, if you flip back to page 50, that's where these items start being listed. Now, you'll see these comments, they start out with a date and a number. The Auditor General in the state of Florida requires our comments to have the date in which we first wrote them to be the first part of the comment. And they're required by statute to track those comments. And the way it works is, if the comment is not cleared after 3 years, the Auditor General is required to report those comments that aren't cleared after 3 years to the legislature. And then they send out a letter to the entity, first, that's their first step, that says, hey, listen, the auditor's written this thing for 3 years, how come it hasn't been fixed? And so this is the second year, and I'm going to go through. Some of them are resolved, and we say they're resolved. Some of them are still not. So earlier, before the meeting started, I met your new manager and also talked with John Boy about we're happy to come out and meet with your manager so he can understand what the issue is whenever it's convenient for him. I know he's still getting his feet wet. And you just hired a secretary. So at some point we'll come out and meet. So the presumption would be that by the end of this next year, all the ones that were 2016 dated are cleared.
Non-compliance.
Yeah, and in compliance. Because just to give you a feel, if they send that letter and you respond and they're not happy with the answer, I mean, they have the right to hold your tax dollars. And so you certainly don't want that to happen. And so we always try to make sure we work with our clients to get them cleared before the third year if all possible. So this first comment, if you look down, every comment, the way it's required by the Auditor General, if it's been there more than 1 year, there'll be a section called Current Year Addendum, which means we wrote it in 16, what was the status in 17? And you'll see on that one that we noticed that the budget was put on the website, which would be in compliance, but the statute says how many days after you approve it, it has to be there, and it didn't make it there. So it was partly corrected. John Boy mentioned earlier before the meeting to me that you guys have done a lot of work and are continuing to do work on your website, so presumably that'll be corrected. The second comment talks about at the bottom of page 50, the current year addendum. You're required by this administrative rule by the state to annually inventory your fixed assets. And I had talked to your manager a little bit about that before the meeting too, that I'm not really sure where that stood with the old manager, so whether he can find it or not. So he familiar with having to take inventory, I'm sure. But along with that, it's not written here, it's a recommendation, is that this being our second year involved, we've been asking, is there a replacement plan for your fixed assets? And no one was ever able to produce one. And so one of our recommendations along with this inventory is, and my guess is there'll be a partial inventory, because the best place to start is with probably John Boy's depreciation schedule. Is at least that gives you some starting point. But when that's done, is to take a physical look at those assets and determine how much life is left, so that you as a board and management can work together about putting together a replacement plan to replace or keep maintaining those assets. Because when we look through the graphs, you're going to see, you've done some repair work on assets, but there hasn't been a lot of purchases of those assets, and you need to get a good feel for where that stands. The next page, you're supposed to,
Can I say something?
yes.
I do know that Ms. Fanga had was preparing for this inventory, but she left unexpectedly. She got to the point of giving each equipment outside a number. Am I correct?
Yeah, we did.
Right, and that was about it, because the next step, she left, so we're back to that only, so we will be in compliance with that.
Right. And that administrative rule, before you do that inventory, you should look up the requirements for that inventory, because it's fairly specific on how you're supposed to keep that inventory and mark those assets. And if you need a policy or you need an example, we're happy to get you one from another government. I'm sure John Boy can do the same. But we're happy to help out.
I think she said to me that she was using what your company had recommended.
Okay. 'Cause I know we sent some over at one time, but I'm
That's
not
what she
sure
said.
what happened to them.
Okay.
On page 51, the first one there, remember I mentioned that there was non-compliance, and here's an example also. You're required to keep on your website, they cleaned up the statute over this last year about how long you're supposed to keep this stuff out there on your website. And one of them is posting all your regularly scheduled meetings on your website so the public can see. And since you're new at this, if you want, we have a whole checklist of all these things. We're happy to send that to you if you want. The next one on this budget carry forward, this one was resolved. You remember last year we came out here, we told you need to amend your budget to bring the carry forward into the next year. Well, it has to be done every year. So once you approve the audit tonight, I'm sure John Boy will propose a budget amendment before the end of the year to bring that audited fund balance into your 18 budget. In other words, whatever's left at the end of 17, you amend your budget to bring it into 18. Okay? So that one's resolved. Presumably it'll go away this year. Number 5, the pay rates. We didn't have an issue with that this year. That one appears to be resolved. The actuarial report, I know historically, I think it was in 15 you had that done last, but that needs to be updated annually now because there's a new federal requirement coming out that this actuarial study gets done every year, and this next year that we do the audit, there's a whole new set of disclosure requirements that we have to get the information from the actuary. So likely the actuarial study will be more expensive because of this new requirement the Fed's put out. So you need to start considering hiring one now so that they get it done by the end of the year.
I don't understand this. If this happened to 2 people years ago and they don't exist today, why do we have to do this? Why do we have
Because you're members of FRS. And as long as you're members of FRS, FRS requires you to allow retirees, whether they do or don't buy insurance, it provides them the right to do it. And because they have the right to do it, it inherently increases the cost of your insurance. And the actuary has to produce a study, and we have to record how much that additional cost will be in the future.
So
It's
far
a
it's
requirement.
$2,500, huh?
So even though there's nobody in the plan now,
Doesn't matter, as long as you're in FRS, you have to have it done. Because the statute says, one of the things you agreed to when you signed up for FRS was you would allow retirees, if they elect to be on the plan. Whether they do or don't, they have the right to. Seven has been resolved. It was, you had cash on hand last year that wasn't in the account. 8, this was accounting for vacation and sick time. We said that you should look at that policy and make the policy more clear. And oddly, that's the first thing he mentioned to me when I met him tonight. That's one of the areas he needs to work on with you. Because as you probably know, if people have, so to speak, bank time at the end of the year, it's supposed to be recorded on your financial statement as a future liability. On 9, that one was resolved as well, about having all that extra information about the board members on your website. 10, one of the requirements of statute 298 is that your treasurer is bonded. And 11, this one talks about also putting the meetings on your website, special meetings and things like that. Fund balance, when we look at the graphs, I'll explain what this one means. So let's just move off at 12. I'll show you what it means when we're looking at the graphs. 13, I mentioned this to you last year, and we sent out a copy of this kind of short policy a lawyer for one of our districts designed. And basically, your method is you're investing in investments allowed by the statute. But you have to have a real policy that says that's what we intend to do. It's really can be a one-page deal. We have a little short example. We set it out there, but we'll send you that again because I'm not sure you'll find it. Okay?
That's a policy for Central County, not for employees or board members.
Right. The last one there, that's a 16 comment, number 14, talks about your budget, your assessment amount being approved by July 1. It's just a couple days late this year. This needs to be approved by, according to statute 298, before July 1st. And then the two comments we have for this year, the first one talks about what's called assigning fund balance, which means basically you as a board look at the reserves or the money you have left over at the end of the year, and you should really put together a policy on, what do we intend to do with this money? And that's called assigning a fund balance. And it's one of the areas the Auditor General is really starting to look at that says, listen, if you're going to carry a balance forward, and you should carry a balance forward, you should identify the reasons why you're carrying it forward. So when we look at the graphs, I'll show you exactly what I mean. It kind of ties in with that other comment on the fund balance.
So it's not legal to just let it go into a money market automatically?
No, it has nothing to do with how you're going to invest it. That's the first thing I talked about. That's the investment policy. This says, why are you holding it?
Why are we holding?
And there's two things that the state recommends and the Fed recommend. And the first one being is the way taxes work in Florida, they get levied November 1st. Your fiscal year starts October 1. And for the most part, taxes really don't start getting collected and distributed out to the governments like yourself until into December. So the Fed basically says you should have around 3 months set aside called a 90-day reserve so that you can fund the beginning of your next fiscal year. Now, functionally, you've been doing it every year. The district uses reserves to cover for those first 3 months until you start collecting your taxes. You just haven't had a policy that said you're going to do that. And that's what you should say. The other thing they say for districts like 298s is that you should talk to the engineer, and we mentioned this last year, and they put together kind of an estimate on, listen, if a disaster occurs, and you had one this year, and so it gives you kind of a little more data. How much cash should you have on hand to at least get the fix going after a disaster? And our 298 districts, the ones we audit about 5, I think, or 6, they all have between 100 and 250 set aside. And maybe not enough money to fix the problem, but it's enough to get you started. Well, maybe you went out and borrowed the money or levied out into taxes or some other way to fix the problem. So it's something you'll have to talk about with your engineer. Along with that, if he were to come back and say, listen, which, I'm just talking here, I don't have this as a fact. If he were to say, you're pretty vulnerable, your equipment's old or whatever, you're pretty vulnerable, maybe the answer is putting aside X dollars of real cash and then having a line of credit available that you don't use, but that's where you would get the money if you had to have it. And some of our governments do that. They'll have a couple $100,000 in-house, and then they'll have a line of credit available if they really had to have the disaster recovery money. But that's something he'll have to look at and give you an idea of what your risk is, and then you can talk to us or talk to John Boy about different options. So if you would, let's look at the graphs. And basically what I'm going to do is, like I did last year, is just tell you, just to remind you of what caused the increase or the decrease from the prior year. So if you look at the first graph, we have 3 years audited numbers up there and then an increase-decrease column. And it'll give you an idea of the change from the prior year. And you see the first 2 line items are cash. One's unrestricted and one's restricted. Just to remind you, restricted cash is money that has to be set aside for what they call the debt reserve for your bonds. You're required to keep a certain amount aside. And you had that, we tested it. At the end of the year, you had about roughly 2.9 million of unrestricted cash. You see that in the 17 column, first number there. That was up about 328,000 adding those two together, the first 2 line items. And that was caused by essentially 2 things. You had revenue greater than your expenditures last year. You took in more revenue than you spent, and that was roughly 200,000. The other 100,000 up was that you had gotten in bills for the pump repairs. You were working on pump 11 at the end of the year. You got the bill in, you expensed the bill, but you didn't pay it until into 18. So that's fine, that's just normal. You get a bill in, you don't turn around and pay it the second what comes in the door. But that's how you explain the difference between net income and cash. There wasn't a lot of other changes here on this first page, except for down at the bottom. And your depreciable assets, basically last year, you put money into fixed assets last year. The biggest part of that being you put about 300,000 into pump 11. And then you put some other money into playground equipment and a mower and that. But the reason that number's a negative is you had your additions, what I just talked about. You spent money on those fixed assets. And then you had depreciation that goes against it. Basically deterioration of your assets. And you guys have currently about $450,000 a year in depreciation, which your depreciation was bigger than the amount of money that you spent on fixed assets. It kind of follows along with my comment that you need to do that replacement schedule on your fixed assets, because if an entity isn't putting money annually into its fixed assets equal to or greater than the depreciation, what that means is your assets are depreciating faster than you're fixing or repairing them or replacing them. And so the numbers are kind of proving that out. So that's something you're going to need to talk to him about once he has time to do an inventory. Next page, your liabilities. And you remember that 2 years ago, you had to start recording that liability for the pension plan, FRS. And so that's a big change. So if you look down here, about the fourth line down, you see at the end of last year, your pension liability. Now remember, that's determined by the state. They have to audit FRS, and then they determine every government that participates in FRS, their share of the liability. They give us the raw data, then we actually do the calculation. And it actually went down a little bit last year, and that's strictly because you had less people on at the end of the year. Down at the last item there, you have other liabilities. Just to remind you, at the end of the year, you had bonds outstanding of about $1,860,000. And then you had 2 leases on equipment, capital leases on equipment, a loader and an excavator. Okay, and that was about 133 left on that one. Just so you know what's in those numbers. Now, flip over to the next page. This is your fund balance. And this is where I was mentioning to you about assigning fund balance. If you look at this in the 17 column, at the end of the year, you had this $2,771,000 net equity left, net fund balance at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, if you were to shut down, that's how much equity you had, this district had at the end of the year. That's the amount you have to carry into your 18 budget. So before the end of 18, you need to approve a budget amendment that will amend what you brought in 18 as an estimate to this actual audited number. Okay? Before we get to September 30. But our recommendation is, look at the number right above that 2.75. You see it's in the unassigned. Our recommendation is that as you work with your manager and with John Boy now, you set aside, you talk about what that money is really being held for. And break it up into pieces, like this emergency reserve, this 90-day reserve, and whatever else, capital replacement, or whatever you envision in the future. And certainly that'll probably change once he gets a better grip on what's going on here with the equipment and your facilities. But that's the comment we have. Do the budget amendment for the 2.771 and allocate that others. Page 4 basically shows you the same info. Page 5 gives you an idea on your tax assessment. And an interesting thing, if you look at this assessment, you guys assess $1 per acre here, right? $220 per acre. the last 2 years. So there's obviously not more acres. And you didn't change the rate, but look at the change in the amount you collected. You collected almost 300,000, 272,000 of prior year taxes. So that really helped your budget and helped the way the year ended in 17. Okay? On that prior graph, where we were talking about fund balance, you had a net income of 193,000 last year. So you had revenues greater than expenses last year of 193. But on this graph that showed your maintenance taxes, look, you collected 351,000 more than you budgeted. So had you not collected that extra money, 17 would have ended in a loss. So good fortune worked your way last year, and you were able to collect an extra 272,000. But so in the future, and what I was mentioning to these guys before the meeting, you guys need to keep that in mind as you're looking at this budget, because you can't run deficits every year. Obviously, you start eating in your reserves, and so you have to make sure you're monitoring that. And I'm sure that somewhere along the line, you presumed you would collect some of those back taxes you hadn't collected, and you did. So that extra bit is kind of off the table now. So make sure you're considering, when you look at your budget for the future, that there's enough cushion in there for the future. So there's only 2 more graphs there. This non-maintenance tax graph, basically this shows you that there's not a lot of other revenue sources you have here other than taxes, which is graph 6. That other income, just to remind you, there's a lot of different things, but it had some insurance in there, some rebates on different things, key sales, rental income, different small things like that. That's what makes up other revenue. But the lion's share of your revenue obviously comes from taxes. Then the last thing is the graph 7, and that just breaks down your expenditures. They were down overall from the prior year, mostly because you spent less money on fixed assets. That was mostly pump repair and different things like that in the prior year as well. There was nothing else that was too exciting in the fluctuations, big numbers, a lot of small changes, except for you spent about $28,000 last year repairing a grader and $11,000 on a tractor, and that kind of follows with this whole maintenance issue. Are you putting more money into these assets rather than replacing them? And until somebody has a chance to really look at them and determine if it's better to fix it or replace it. But that's one of the, when you're done auditing and you start looking at these factors that cause the change, and why I like doing these graphs for the boards is it gives you these kind of things that pop out and kind of follow the different assumptions you're making. And those were 2 of the big reasons why water control and roads were higher this year. You see it was up 37,000, and those 2 things right there were almost 40,000. I mean, Irma had a little effect in there also. I mean, every job we audit this year, Irma gets brought up because everybody incurred extra expense.
Can you tell me what we spent the $11,000 on?
Yeah, the 11 was on a tractor. I don't know, it was Challenger, the Challenger tractor. Forgot, but I remember looking at it.
And this was last year?
17.
So base, from what I've seen here, we are marked at
I'm sorry?
We are marginal when it comes to our budget. So very soon, we're gonna have to start considering either keep cutting our expenses or have to raise the taxes to even it up.
And a big factor is gonna come in probably when he has time to understand the operations a bit better and the condition of your facilities. It'll probably be important that he has time with your engineer, because sure he knows the facilities inside and out, and spend time with John Boy and his staff, because I'm not sure how much more you can cut. Right? We don't do management, I don't know. I can tell that personnel was down, but I don't know if that's intentionally or not.
Based on your professional experience, I know what we're gonna take a guess here. Do you think we can hold X amount of years before we consider increasing the taxes to adjust our budget, or it may happen sooner? But what I see here, I see it sooner than later.
That's my gut. And one of the reasons is, equipment, it's a machine, They could
Right.
break down if they were brand new. But it might be covered under warranties, different things like that. But seeing a cause for over budget being big repair bills, and knowing that we've had the comment for 2 years, there's not been an inventory, nobody could produce a replacement study. My guess is that there are a lot of either replacement or repairs to be done, which is gonna cost money. And so you guys will have to decide how far out it can be stretched. Just in his report tonight, 2 or 3 times he said the work stopped because tires went, or this or that, something happened. And because of the downturn in the economy, many governments didn't replace fixed assets, so a lot of governments are behind the 8 ball in that regard. In your case, your taxes aren't based on dollar value, so not ad valorem like county taxes, but you had a big amount of taxes that weren't collectible. And I looked at the budget, and when you guys approve it and John Boy's firm puts it together, you estimate a 15% uncollectible, which is high. The state requires you to estimate at least 5%. I was very pleased that if the facts show it's 15%, and it did in the past, that's the way you budgeted. I mean, a lot of people budget, even though they know it's 15%, they budget a 5%, and then they have this kind of unexplained loss. So that was very astute on your part and your management side, but my guess is that's probably coming.
We had this conversation a while back, and I know that you guys gonna agree that a lot of the repairs that were made before Mr. Kelly came here, hopefully that will change, is that all the work was sent out to outside entities. But when you say county, you know what that means. That's ching-ching, that's the cash register. And a lot of that repair could have been done in-house. Arminio picked up the fence in the clubhouse, saved us $8,000. There's no excuse why repairs that could be done in-house, you're talking about thousands of dollars. Not talking about $2,000 or $3,000, you're talking well over $50,000 on repairs. That could have been done here, and that's why we hire employees. That's why we hire mechanics, so they could take care of these problems, just like with the pumps.
Yeah, I'm just not familiar enough what
But
tools and
what do they, like
skills
the other
they
places
have.
that you order, what do they usually do? Do they just go out and buy another piece of equipment?
Most of the 298, which like yours, 298 means water control districts by statute. It's called 298 districts. Most of them do the work in-house.
Right, okay,
And that's what happened last year. We had a dysfunctional,
yeah.
not staff, but we had a dysfunctional leader. Or leaders. And I have a feeling that's why you see those numbers. Mr. Kelly has a great experience, according to his resume, and to the time that we spoke with him, and we hope to see that go down. Because I have a feeling that that is what happened. Everything was sent out. I agree with him 100%. And that was done for almost a year, so.
Well, the only thing that may be counter to that, which I don't know if it's factual or not, but it may be that your repairs were so big or so many that you didn't have enough staff to do it and you had to send it out. I don't know that for a fact, but it may be the case. We find that in some districts that they've been band-aiding the equipment so long, the repair is beyond the capability of staff, and so they had to send it out. Now, the reason I tried to point you towards 298 districts, you know, oftentimes board members want to compare themselves to just districts and all, but like fire districts, you have to have a certain emergency equipment certification to do that, and only the big departments do the work in-house because they can't afford to pay somebody like that.
Okay, I do agree with let's call it 100,000 misspending in repairs and all that. But the way I see it,
I can't.
No,
I'm
I know.
not saying that.
I'm talking about internally. I recognize, you know, the money that I would spend foolishly and whatever. But even if I raise it up to 100,000, which is way over what we spend, if I do the subtraction and the adding, it's not going to help on the next year budget expenses. So definitely, even if we save all that money, we're still going to be in the hole. I'm not an expert on accounting as you are, but I'd add and subtract, and I noticed that 100,000 is not going to bail us out.
Right.
So we do have to start considering what we don't want to do. Even if Mr. Dave Kelly over here can save all his money, and we're still going to be in the hole. So if we go in the hole, we're going to be using that reserve money that has got to be allocated for.
Well, at this point, you can't really assess new taxes for next year, 18 year you're in. You really need to be, basically you got 3 months or so before you approve your next budget. Is really looking to that year. Hopefully he has time and your staff have time to get together and analyze the budget and decide if there's stuff in there that can be cut out. And so when you go into adopting that next budget for 19, you have a better idea and more comfort of what needs to be done.
We're also waiting for funds from FEMA that have not come in yet. And that should give us a big boost.
Sir,
How much did you apply for?
I'm very impressed.
Mr. Bennett, how much do we apply for? Excuse me.
We're still in the process of getting all the repairs in, but FEMA has already received some of our estimates, and
What number so far?
well, we don't have that total so far, but I had estimated between 300 and 500,000 originally, and we're supposed to have the FEMA inspector out here in 2 weeks, and he'll be looking at that, and we'll be finalizing some of that after that.
So that should help, right? Thank you.
So it's a temporary patch.
But it's a patch.
For what it's worth, I'm very impressed with your presentations. It makes it easier for a layman like me to see what's happening on
The graphs.
the graph and the numbers. So I'm very impressed for the performance of your company with what we have paid you for.
Thanks.
That doesn't mean you're gonna raise the prices next year, but it means that I'm very happy.
Thanks.
I don't know how the rest of the board feel.
You haven't met James. This is James West. He was one of the auditors that
Right.
actually did the work.
I want to get on your list for that course that was canceled because of the hurricane.
Did you, have you guys seen the invitation, or there's a conference for the Association of Special Districts
Yeah, the
Yes.
attorneys and,
in
I saw it today.
Yeah, the attorneys in-
June?
Yes. Is that your company that's giving it?
No, but I'm speaking there.
Oh, okay.
Kind of funny.
I
They
saw
set
it
out.
for a couple of seconds today. I have to read it.
The funny story about that is I got the pamphlet before they ever called me to ask me to speak. I called the guy, I go, I see I'm speaking, and he's like, well, didn't they? I said, nobody ever called. Kind
But
of
your
funny.
company is not giving the one you give yearly for supervisors?
We had it planned, like I told you last year, then Irma came through,
Right.
messed our office up, but more so messed the hotel up, so they had to cancel because we didn't have a room. So we're looking at fall again this year.
Keep me in mind, please.
All of our clients are invited.
Okay. Thank you.
Don't steal your dress, okay? I'll give you some.
Any other questions? So if possible, if you would consider a motion to approve, we will work with your manager in John Boyd's office and make sure it gets sent to all, the audit gets sent everywhere it's supposed to go.
Do I hear a motion?
last second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. And that was a motion to approve the audit, the paperwork that was done. In case the audience.
To approve it and to work with accounting.
Thank you. Okay, next report will be, let's go back to our agenda. Where is it? Engineers report?
Yes, this past month, we've been working with FEMA. I had a couple of conference calls with FEMA and our consultants, and working through all the paperwork to submit the claims. It's actually done not as one total claim, but they said each thing as a separate project. So we're working through getting those projects put in, and like I said, the FEMA, the actual date hasn't been set, but it'll be within the next 2 weeks that the FEMA inspector will come and I'll go with him and we'll view the damages and some of the documentation that we have for that.
And how far ahead do you think, how long do you think before we get a yes or no or a number? Do you?
They will be approving some of these projects. For instance, we replaced a couple of culverts, and all that work has been completed, and we've got all the numbers to them on those. And so they'll probably start processing that part of the claim fairly quickly, but you won't get it in one check. Apparently they'll as they approve a portion of it, they fund that. The other thing is, we did do the inspection on the reservoir dike, turned in the report to the South Florida, and they responded that we've met their requirements for the inspection. And the drainage, I met with Mr. Kelly, and our survey crews have been getting some survey data for the woodland area. They'll also be gathering some information for the southeast part of the district, which is over around Perimeter Road. Some of that area stayed wet just as long as the woodlands area did after the storm.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Well, there's an area there that was wet considerably after a lot of the places were dried up.
I brought up once before, a few times, we're 2 months away from hurricane season coming back.
Yes.
The rains begin. I think the woodlands take priority.
Well, that's the one we're working on first, yes.
Right. So whatever we do, we've been dragging on this for all due respect. Because if we're gonna do something, we're gonna need time. And we only got 2 months. I don't wanna see no more animals being drowned. I don't wanna see no more people losing property, cars, houses, and it was bad. So, please, whatever we do, and we have to give time to Mr. Kelly, that if we need to start cleaning out those ditches and deepen them up, or whatever we need to do to start. I know for a fact, I looked at the map, I'm not an engineer, okay? But somebody dropped the ball when they designed this. Because it's not an actually physically a canal between the Woodlands and us. So we either gonna have to, I'm not an engineer, but we're gonna have to run a canal or an underground pipe to tie the Woodlands into our canals so our pumps will work.
Yeah. Well, there's actually 2 connections to our canals from Woodlands, but neither one are functioning like they should, and we may need additional.
If you recall,
To get that.
the wood, flagpole, they filled out it. So
Yeah.
it's not here anymore.
Right.
So,
Oh, no, there's still 2. There's two connections to the canal.
through a culvert.
Through culvert, yeah, through culvert.
Okay, that culvert, look what happened to one that collapsed,
Right.
okay? And the other one is, in my opinion, I'm not an engineer, but we need to dig that up, and we need to make actually a tunnel or a big concrete culvert. Because that, in my opinion, that pipe is not big enough to transfer the water from the Woodlands over to our canal system.
That's what we're checking, yeah. The size of the pipes and the condition of the pipes and the elevations of the pipes.
So do you think by the next meeting, we can have a semi-plan
Yeah.
on the part that Mr. Kelly can jump in?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, Mr. Kelly, you were not here, but the Woodlands, they were flooded. I mean, they were flooded. A lot of people lost goats, chickens, cows, a lot of property damage because the water, because of the way our terrain is. That area of town is lower than the rest, and of course, water goes downhill. So, as soon as he gives you an indication what needs to be done, please, we only got 2 months. And I don't wanna have to come up with excuses. If we get another heavy rains and we get another hurricane, I don't wanna come up with excuses. Oh, no. We have the time. We've been dragging on this for a while. And I know that it takes time for the surveys and it takes time for that. And our prior manager was not on the ball on digging up whatever needed to be done. So keep that in the back of your head, and as soon as he gives you an idea what needs to be done, let's try to jump on it.
We'll come up with a plan.
That's all I have.
Treasurer?
Okay, treasurer's report shows that we spent about $136,000 last month, which we transferred from the Center State Bank to the operating account. Our total taxes receivable, including the prior ones, are $1,206,000. As far as our 2017 taxes go, we assessed $1,747,000. We got about $597,000 left to collect. The breakdown of this month of March collections is $169,000 for current year taxes and $9,000 for the prior year taxes, for a total of $178,000. on current year taxes, we're about $111,000 ahead of this time last year. And on delinquent taxes, we're just barely ahead, but at least we're still hanging in there so far. 100,228 delinquent taxes. So usually we stop there and ask for any questions.
Has the money been transferred from the one bank to another bank?
That's gonna be my next topic as soon as we're looking at this.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, all right. As far as the bank goes, we voted last time to move $1.5 million into CDs. And from our phone call quote, Seacoast had the highest rates. Now, after that, Center State Bank came back, because we've been doing business with them so long. So what they offered is, where Seacoast has a 1.75% one-year CD, they offered 2.01% on a 15-month CD, which is 3 months longer. But they also have no penalty for early withdrawal, so any of that money that we need back, there won't be an interest charge. And they would match the 1.36 on the money market. So I think the factors to consider are, it wasn't like a sealed bid or anything like that. It just asked for quotes, but Seacoast did have the highest quote then. So that's one thing to consider.
Okay, so for many years they did us wrong, okay, because they did not care to offer. Now that we bring up the higher interest, now they want to counteract. I'm not happy with that word, numbers.
Well,
Right? If they had an opportunity, sir, for 10, 15 years to match an average interest. An average, I'm not saying higher or lower, an average. Nobody took the time to discover what I have. And I don't think it's right. Now, if there would have been a sealed bid, okay, the other bank would have won. So I do not think we should go back with the bank we had, because they had the opportunity. They had the opportunity, and I'm treating this like a sealed bid. Okay? So after I cheat on my wife, I tell her that I'm sorry.
well,
No, honestly, that's what they're saying.
I mean, they're not obligated to go out and say, we're gonna raise your rates.
So whose fault is it? Is it ours? Is it yours?
Let me just finish.
Remember when we was reaching out to borrow money, who was the only bank that would loan us money?
Well, that's what I was gonna say, they gave us, and I'm not,
Seacoast
I'm
wouldn't.
just trying to lay the facts out there and let y'all decide. Okay? They loaned us $2.5 million when basically we were having trouble getting from anywhere else. Seacoast has shut down the bank as well. There's nothing there but an ATM machine. And they're selling this bank to the police department and moving into a bank, a strip mall thing with no drive-through facilities or anything like that. And so that's the different points. Whichever way y'all want to go is fine, but I was obligated to come back and just.
Let them fight it, whoever pays the highest rate, I mean, that's what we're looking for. Right?
They're actually going higher on the CD. We could go back to Seacoast and say, okay, they've raised the offer here.
Who knows, maybe the other one raises it.
Bring it back because it's.
So we accept the highest?
20.
That's money.
it's, the principle is wrong, but the
Well,
business
yeah.
decision is
It's
to
to
more
go
money,
with the money.
okay?
Right.
So we gotta go with the money.
Yeah.
So-
Gotta go with the money.
I think you should start making arrangements to start transferring the money to show the other bank that we're serious. Okay? And once that people are serious, no, I'm saying, we already voted on it. It's already passed,
That what is already passed?
that we were gonna transfer the money.
Not until this came up, I mean, we're talking about
No.
higher.
We already voted, and it was Mr. Bruno who brought out the 1.5 to be transferred. Now we have a counteroffer. Okay, once we get a counteroffer in writing, not verbal, not over the phone, in writing, then we're gonna have to vote again. But you tell that bank that at least one of the members is determined to get the most amount of interest. And I'm very upset that we got gypped so many years that nobody, not that accounting firm, not the management, not any of the board members, looked into this. We talking about, I added it up, we have lost over $500,000. $500,000, that's a lot of money. And I have a reason to be upset because that is the taxpayers' money.
Seems a little high to me, but still.
Add it up,
the
add it
rates
up,
are
add it
higher
up,
now
sir.
than they have been in a long
How much
time.
more is Seacoast willing to pay now for the CD?
What, 20?
They offered,
21%.
they offered, Seacoast offered 1.75% for 12 months. And then now Center State is saying 2.01. So
Not gonna send us.
it's 26 cents more. Now,
Yeah.
you know, we could go back to Seacoast and say, look, you know, here's what's on the table now. You don't wanna-
Right.
Yeah, but sir, I don't want no verbal arrangements over the phone. Okay? I want a written contract letter stating what they're willing to offer. So we can present it to the rest of the board and we can make a business decision. We're gonna go, I personally gonna go whoever gives me the more money, the more interest. Okay? I don't have no favoritism
That's
with the
why I
bank.
brought it back.
And I'm sure that the other board members feel the same way. You're not the only one.
Yeah. We just wanna get the most for our money. That's the bottom
What
line.
we
Whoever's
can
gonna
say
pay the
is-
highest.
What we could say is this is where it's at now, whatever you respond to is it now, you know? Instead of, you know, if one raises it a little bit more than the other, does that mean we, you know, we offer another round?
No, I think this should be the last round. I think if we keep going back and forth, so I hear, huh?
Killing time, wasting money.
Yeah, yeah. So I hereby move that whatever bank comes out with the best interest for our money, we swap.
Or we stay, because we don't know what they're gonna do.
Right.
We select the one.
We select the highest percentage.
Exactly.
We have a second.
Let me throw one thing out here. This isn't a change. I brought this up last time, but we still recommend that we do our operating account through First Bank of Clewiston, because they only keep like $18,000 or $20,000 in there, and they do all the direct deposits, everything. That's where 90% of our time is to deal with First Bank. So this is like the extra money out there that Center State and Seacoast need to account for. Because it would be a big deal to move all that stuff that's been set up. And
Employees.
From First Bank, employees, direct deposit, everything. So, and we're only talking about an average balance of $18,000 out of $2.5 million. And that's why. So I want to make sure we agree to leave the operating there. And they're paying 0.5% interest on just a daily fluctuation.
So, a motion on that, on what he just said?
That motion was already done. That was
I
weird, that was
just
the
wanna
way it
make sure
read.
that was in the, in our
About
final
the employees
agreement.
and all that,
Yeah,
we had
keep the
spoken.
checking account with First Bank and all this other money comes down to Seacoast.
Oh, was it the reserve money? That's where we were gonna remove, the reserve, not operating money.
Yeah, okay, I just wanna make sure that's clear, because, okay.
Well, it's clear to me, I don't know if it's clear to the rest of the board.
It's clear.
Yeah,
How about you?
okay. That's all I have.
Okay.
We never did vote on it.
Motion,
I made the motion.
second, and we pick the best out of,
Yeah, the best paying, yeah.
So second?
Second, everybody agree with that, yeah.
Is he coming back with a report?
Right, he's
Yeah,
gonna let us
with a
know
selection, which bank? to
which
select.
bank is gonna pay the highest.
Send them a letter and tell them to respond with their final bid in writing.
Right.
So is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Clubhouse.
Clubhouse is doing fine.
Oh, let's do the time.
We just passed the health inspection, no problem. We did the egg hunting, it was fun, except with a few ants on the candies from the ground. The basketball tournament was awesome. We have 2 more teams from the last time, so 6. It's getting big. And everything else is fine. We're getting ready for the summer camp. I do have a little question for Mr. Boy. Did you locate the 36,000 that I need for the summer camp, Mr. Boy?
Well, I looked at it was $35,000, that we budgeted for capital equipment that we're not going to buy. So that can be moved, into any other part of the line item change, like the summer camp. I didn't know, you talking about spending the whole 35,000 on the summer camp?
Well, we always do, almost, yeah.
35,000?
35,000 or
last
3,500?
1,000.
$35,000 for summer camp?
It's always been 35,000.
Daycare.
We don't spend the whole of it, but it's always been located 35,000. It's always been. If you guys want to take it out, it's up to you guys. I'm just asking for this year because it's right around the corner. If I use it,
There's money to be spent there because, the 35,000, we apparently aren't gonna use that.
What happened that
Whether
it
or
was
not it
not on
was-
the budget originally?
We had on the budget before, I get the summer camp, but there was only like $5,000 on there. And we
No.
dropped that because the East Coast was gonna take it over. It's maybe not.
I did all the running around and they said no.
I'm just saying that,
This year, no.
but I'm just saying I don't think.
That's why you
we
had
didn't
taken
have
it
to-
out? Because of East
Well,
Coast?
we did that in our final meeting of all the whole thing, I got right there,
Said
we
no.
scratched $5,000 out and said the East Coast is gonna take that over. But as far as, if 35,000 is what, y'all want to budget,
That's the same budget he had last year and the year before? No, last year. 32,
last budget
35.
was 304,000.
No, I'm talking about for the summer camp only.
The summer camp budget was actually 42 4 years ago. They bring it down to 40. And 2 years ago, they put it down to 36. And that's it.
That's what I thought 2 years in a row.
Yes.
Yes.
I know we're not supposed to, but I would like to make a comment. I've worked summer camp, and of course my kids are grown. To me, most of your summer camps and most of the summer is the camp counselors' kids or their friends that come in. It shuts down the pool, the clubhouse, the basketball court, everything for your kids 13 and over. It pushes them to the street. Those are the kids you don't want out robbing your house. Those are the kids you want to have somewhere to go. They have nowhere during the summer.
As far as I know, there's gonna be something new this summer, right?
Yes.
Could you tell the audience?
Summer camp ages are up to 16 this year.
So they are inclusive. Teenagers will be participating. And he's even spoken with the principals of the school to make sure that they get,
the hours that they need for the schools.
For school hours, for graduation that they needed.
Yeah, but it still closes the clubhouse down for most kids that don't go to summer camp.
You can either do it or you don't do it. You cannot do it for everyone. You cannot please everyone. So those kids are gonna have to wait till 3 o'clock.
Take it back whenever we was growing up. If your parents, if you was underage and your parents didn't take you, you didn't get to go. That's the way it should be. It shouldn't cost us $36,000. That could be working on a road that needs to be done.
Have we ever been without a,
As far as the numbers go, I think some of these things that we're calling summer camp is probably part of the regular payroll that's running through there and stuff. What I remember is we do like, and I'm not out here, so I don't know exactly, but we have like a special 2-week thing or something, and that was an extra $5,000 and over people's salaries that are already being, the salaries are already budgeted and already being spent.
but you're assuming that the only employee staff is gonna be from the clubhouse, and that's not the case. He is employing counselors. There are teachers from Clueston,
Yeah.
so it's not the staff only that's gonna be working.
I understand, I just.
What happened before when we had no summer school, no summer program? Did we ever get a time?
We hired an extra lifeguard. And the kids got to go and, like I say, when there was a certain age, they wasn't allowed to go there without a parent, you know?
And how long ago was that?
Summer
20 years
camp's
ago,
only been
15 years
going
ago?
4 years, 5 years?
4 years, 5 years ago?
Yeah,
That was the status?
yeah.
5 years ago, we do have a summer camp with 7 counselors and 1 head counselor. Because I was already working at the clubhouse. I'm just asking because I'm responsible for the summer camp. It's up to you guys to do it or not. I'm not discussing to do it or not to do it. I just want to make sure the money's on the budget for doing it. If you guys don't want to do it, it's fine. If you want to do it, we need the money.
I know we have the money.
And you always got
It's
that
up
money
to-
year after year for the past 5 years.
The money for the summer camp is always being located on the salaries and wages. This year, I'm about 28,000 less than last year. My budget last year was 304. This year is 271. So that was the difference of the summer camp. That's the money that we pay the counselors. That's the money that we pay all the lifeguards, and
We get the food for free.
field trip, all that, all the supplies for the summer camp. All that is in that $36,000. It's up to you guys to do it or not. I just want to make sure that if we're doing it, we have the money. That's all.
That includes the lunch and the break, the two breaks.
All that is free.
All that is
All
free.
that is free.
No. I mean, do we pay for it?
Yeah.
We pay for it, so it's not free.
Lunch?
No, we pay the salary for the employees. The lunch is free. It's donated by Henry Company.
Okay.
It's
We have
a summer food program or something like that they call it.
We have a comment, we're gonna accept it.
One question, how many kids did we get last year, the year before?
Every year, since I've been in the clubhouse, there's about 120 to 150 kids registered.
Okay.
A daily basic is about anytime between 70 to 80 kids.
That's a lot of kids.
And for how many days during the summer?
8 weeks. 8 weeks.
Well, have we ever gotten to the point, has the board ever gotten to the point that they have decided yes or no on summer program? I've only been here a year, so that's why I'm asking. Those of you that have been here before.
Oh, you go, been here.
No, it wasn't, because they were considering Louise, wherever was gonna take this program over.
Last year, I
Last year.
consider it, yeah. But
We don't
I did
agree
the,
with
I did all
Keith
the,
Reagan either.
Yeah.
I did everything that I possibly could to do it. I didn't wait for Wanda to do it, I didn't wait for anyone to do it. I took it over. And I went to see Mr. Chapman. Mr. Chapman sent me to another person that was then later appointed for that program. And he notified me 2 weeks after I spoke to him, and we came almost to an agreement that they were gonna do the same people they did last year. And I found out, I think it was from Arminio, that the people that they're gonna do this year, they have to pay, right?
Yes.
How much was it that you told me, a week?
They took over of Clewiston, and in Clewiston, every single kid has to pay weekly $55 from 8 to 3. If you want the whole day, it's
That program.
75.
That's with the same program that you thought we were gonna take over this year.
And
So
then
we are
Harlem,
gonna save money.
they also took over Harlem, and every kid has to pay 35 or 60 for the whole day.
So where I work at, the kids have to pay $300
A week,
for 4 weeks.
for 4 weeks. That's almost the same.
So can we,
All this
can
is
we,
free, right?
right,
Yes.
so can we consider charging the kids from
Sooner or later, you're gonna have to, or you're gonna get a deeper hole.
So why don't we come up with a fair price today that we charge each kid X amount of dollars at least to compensate on the cost?
You can.
Right?
Will be a first, huh?
So,
No.
so thirty,
No.
so $35 in Harlan and 55 in Clewiston?
That's from 8 to 3.
And what are you offering?
I'm not offering anything. I'm just a
Okay,
manager of the
What
club.
operating, what operating hours do you have?
Oh, we always do from 7:30 to 3. That's our normal hours.
Okay,
Basically 8 hour day.
8 hour day,
Yeah.
okay? So can we at least match Harlan, $35 a kid?
I don't think you're gonna get
You're not gonna
people
get it.
here in Montour to pay $30 a week for children. They've never done it. They're never gonna do it.
How about $25?
I don't know. I don't have the answer.
You need to, or you guys gonna be broke.
Yes?
I got a question. As far as the kids that come out here, I know last summer I was out here and I was running into quite a few kids that weren't from out here, that were running around on the street and stuff like that.
Yes.
Is this program just for the children and the residents of Montura?
Yes?
No,
Yes?
So,
not.
because I know, like last year, I know we had a lot of
No.
basically suspicious persons calls out here. They kind of spiked up, and it would be kids, teenagers that were walking around, bicycles, stuff like that. So I just wanted to know if it was just for the residents of Montura, or if it was for kids.
Once they get inside the clubhouse is closed. Nobody leaves the clubhouse until the parents came. But
Okay.
what he says, about 3 years ago there was a discussion between the board members about that, because ours is free. There's people bringing kids from outside. That's why we have so many kids. And they determined not to ask for anything, just
Yeah, I
to
think that
register.
was a discussion because they were talking about like the grandparents.
So, do we
Right.
consider as a board having it or not having it and come back next month, or is it too late to make that decision? Come back next month with a decision
No,
as to,
I think we can come up with a decision right now. We can come up with a fair price of $25, okay? It's not gonna cover the cost, but it's gonna offset
okay,
all the money that we spend.
that will be fine, but with the consideration, and if I'm wrong, you tell me, the consideration that if we don't have enough students or parents that will pay $25, you have to stop the program. There is no summer
That's
program.
not up to me, that's up to you guys.
Well, you're not gonna have a program with 10 kids?
Well, if you guys agree to do the summer camp, you
With
guys
$25
have
a week, he's
to.
saying.
Right, but if it's not enough kids, you guys have to agree again to take it off.
Well,
It's not up to Michael, it's up to you guys.
Well, it's common sense.
Could I ask, is there any way of keeping the ones that don't live in Montura out of there?
Well, what happens is, on that discussion that I'm talking about, there's 100 kids. They're coming from Miami, everywhere, and what happens is, they don't live in here, but their grandparents does, so they have the same right.
Oh, okay, now I got it.
That's why nothing was done with it.
They do come from town as well.
Hey,
Well,
let's
it's
charge
good.
them.
Charge them?
They got, yeah, you get, those people you charge, but the people that live in Montora, I mean, I don't think they could afford to pay.
But you can't distinguish who lives and who doesn't.
Well, there has to be a way of knowing.
How? When the grandparent lives here and she
No,
wants to
but
charge
no, the ones that live outside of Montora, they gotta show ID.
You can't send your kids to daycare for $25 a week.
Yeah, you don't. You're
So what are
right.
you saying, 25 is too low? Harlem is doing 25?
Let's try,
Harlem is doing 25?
no, 35.
35.
the new 55. So,
We have to have a meeting of 25.
So let's,
See what works out. Don't work out, we can raise it, or lower it, or do it.
and supplement the rest if he needs
yeah,
the
of
money.
course we gotta supplement the
We got
rest.
3 options, either do it. don't do
Okay,
it.
so how do we word this so that we could get this over with and know what we're doing?
We gotta vote on it.
Yes, I know that. I said, how do we word it?
Now, we're gonna charge every kid that is participating in the summer camp $25 to offset the cost
Okay,
of the summer
a
camp,
week.
a week.
And if we don't have enough students, how many is enough? Finish the sentence.
Instead of hiring 5 counselors, we hire 3. And if we only have 2 students, we hire 1 counselor.
I don't agree. I think that if we only have 1 student or 3 students or 5, we should close the program.
No, because the payroll's still going on.
But he has to hire extra people.
Okay.
2 extra people for
So
5
it's-
kids?
No, if it's only 1 kid, he only has to hire, 1 counselor.
But if you
I
keep it
disagree.
open for 1 or 2 people, the clubhouse is still shut down.
Yeah, the
for
whole
rest
clubhouse
of the
shuts
day.
I disagree. Well, 1 or 2 students.
Well,
you're
the
harming
thing
the
is
rest
that-
of.
It's not
the
gonna be
rest of
one,
the-
it's not gonna be 1 or 2 students.
Well, we have to come with a number. If you're gonna make a motion, we either make 2 motions and we vote on 2 different things, or we put them together. Is that correct, Ms. Hernandez? Am I correct? Because otherwise you can't put it as a motion. So, do we motion first that the price, and then we finish with that motion? If this happens, if we don't have enough students, then we have to give a number. 5, if we don't have 10 kids or
What
whatever,
about,
we close the program.
what about if you put it into place now and then at the next meeting decides there's enough?
It's too
people?
late, I was told.
School's out.
He has to,
School's out the
Yeah.
30th.
it's
What
too
was-
late.
What was your number last year?
136 registrations, and the daily basic was anything between 70 and 80 kids. The field trip was 112 kids.
Free field trip, free.
It was free, right? Yes.
So, do we do 2 motions, and that way it's clearer? Okay, so the first motion is,
Before you make a motion, keep in mind that Connie is right. If I have 1 kid, 1 in the clubhouse,
nobody could come in. That's
has
why
to
I
be
said that
closed.
that rule is no
Yeah.
good with 5 kids coming to 5 kids are gonna be in the swimming pool, and the rest of the children and parents cannot come into the swimming pool, all into the clubhouse. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to them.
If it ain't 30, 40 people, you shouldn't do it.
Right, well, we have to come with that clear. We're gonna vote on it, it has to be clear.
Is there an amount of counselors that you gotta have per children?
Well,
I mean, like, it's 1 counselor per 15 or 20?
You gotta have a
One-
number.
1 counselor every 8 to 10 kids.
Wow.
I can't see closing the clubhouse because you have 8 kids for the whole summer.
I have to.
It's not fair to the other kids.
It's not fair to me either, but that's what the law says.
I know that, so we have to vote on a number. So if we don't have, let's say, 30 kids paying the $25 a week, we should not. I'm just giving that as an example. Do not kill the messenger. I'm just giving that as an example.
Well, he says he
Change
has
the
over
numbers.
100 kids every day, right? Isn't it?
No. A daily
No.
basic is anything between 70 to 80 kids.
No, 50, maybe 50 then. 50?
That's our daily basic.
75?
Okay, and I don't have no 175, and to me, you don't have a program.
Does that sound fair? 75 registered or 75 attending?
Registered.
When they register, they have to
You gotta
register.
You gotta look at the attendance.
Payment when they register.
The attendance is the problem, not that they register. Suppose 30 come.
So they're all gonna be paying the $25, so if they come or not, it's turned off.
But suppose 30 come, or 8 come.
Well, the rest.
You're gonna close the clubhouse because of 8 kids? To the residents?
They
The
were
attrition
gonna have to-
levels were high because it was free. If they have to pay up
Right.
front, there's hardly gonna be any attrition. So you can pretty much count on the amount of students that are gonna come.
Registration, whenever you
Yeah,
got registration and they have to
payment upon
pay.
registration, and that's
You're
how
gonna know
control
this.
on things are gonna
You
get.
know who's
I
coming.
personally like Joe's idea.
Do you have a registration already? Do you have a list with people that are interested in going open already? Or no?
Oh, there was
I already have 32 kids.
Okay, that's, that are gonna go if it's free.
That is free.
Right.
Of course.
Okay, do you charge, if it was to be charged, is this gonna be on a weekly basis,
Yes.
monthly basis, or what?
That's up to you guys.
They have to have.
We have to
Well, we gotta.
look at it.
weekly
This is the first
basis.
time we're doing this. This is the first, we gotta do it right.
In 1 week, you're not gonna, okay, you might have 10, then the next week you have 0.
Yeah, right?
And then you close the clubhouse. And we have 1 kid in there only, and the clubhouse is closed.
That's a touchy
That's the law,
situation.
that's the law.
Yeah,
So,
I would go with Joe on that, on the 75, and if not, that's it.
75 attendance or 75 registered?
But
That'd be
pay.
registered.
Paying, yeah, we're paying.
$25 a week. That's what
Right.
you're doing.
And you want it as attendance, the 75, not as registered.
You
Is
have
that
to
clear?
enforce attendance.
But is everybody gonna pay, right?
You have to
Yes.
enforce attendance, yes.
The attendance
It
you're
has to
never
be
gonna know.
75,
It's gotta be registered.
it's got to be registered.
Yes.
Then we're back to the same thing again.
You don't know how many they are gonna attend every day.
If an individual register, he's gonna pay $25.
But
If he
he's not
comes
coming every day.
or if he don't, okay?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so it's not
The next
attendance, we're talking about register.
Once they pay.
The
That's what I'm
next
saying.
week, he doesn't show up the next
That's what
week.
I'm saying, that the
Right.
count has to be by register, not by the attendance.
Right, register.
You have to pay monthly.
If they come or not, that's their fault.
Yeah.
Okay.
But registered does not guarantee you the payment.
Correct.
No.
Registered does not guarantee you the payment because they're gonna do weekly payments.
This should not be.
The parents are not doing monthly payments.
We have to start somewhere. And Joe
I am
has the
telling
right
you-
idea Of doing it.
I am telling you it's gonna get,
And if we start thinking about the sun is gonna come out or not, we're not gonna move forward. And I think the audience is right.
you wanna try it, go right ahead. We vote on it and go right ahead.
So the summer come,
Can I say something? If
Yes.
somebody pays, whether it's $25, $35 or whatever, they pay up front. Why would they pay $35 and not show up?
Right.
Well, but that's
The
not
next
what
week,
they're doing in a week.
the next week.
They're not gonna attend
Not-
next
not
week.
that week.
And then it's
Yeah,
gonna
they won't show up.
fluctuate up and down, and then.
How come you can't do it monthly? How come you can't
That's
charge
what I
the fee
imagine, you
monthly?
can charge a month.
$100 a month.
So it's $100.
$100 a month,
$100
and this way you know at
And-
least for that
and
month
you
you're gonna
gotta
have these
have
many.
you give them a shirt.
well, it's not, like I said, it's not up to me, it's up to you guys.
8 weeks.
I can charge however you guys want to
$200
charge.
for your kid to go. If your kid, they don't
Yeah,
sign
wait
up for it to be
weeks.
the
I
$200
think it
and
should
they
be
don't let
that
the kid
way.
go.
The entire
You want it
amount.
that way?
Amount of
Yeah,
funds.
8 weeks.
We're gonna see how many we get. $200.
Registration, you put 50%, and then the first day you get it.
Okay, so it's,
Then it don't
You gotta
matter.
vote.
They
let's
already
reword
paid.
it. They have to pay for the 2 months.
Right.
No, 8 weeks.
8 weeks is 2 months.
Yeah, well, not really, because you have five weeks.
Yeah, not exactly, not
So
exactly.
we're talking.
Yeah.
8 weeks.
8 weeks, right?
8 weeks.
Okay, so they have to pay it up front,
Yep.
completely.
You gotta vote on it.
I know that. I'm throwing it out again so that when we vote knowing what we're doing,
Can you change?
knowingly.
Can you change schedules on the counselors? If we go on a month basis instead of making the person pay for 2 months, can we pay for 1 month? And then at the end of the third week, you know how many children you have registered, that you can lay off or hire more if it's so needed,
But how are you gonna know that?
by the amount of people who register.
But one day it could be 20, and then on the next day it
I'm
could
talking
be.
about the third week. About the third week. Can you make a decision on the third week
Okay.
that if you have 100 kids, okay, you're gonna need X amount of counselors? So you don't have to contract the counselor for the whole 8 weeks, right? You can hire the counselor by the week.
Well, I play with the counselors. If one day I have 50 kids and I have 7 counselors, I'll send 2 home.
Okay.
That's the way I'll do it.
So
Can you do that? Can you, would they accept that? The counselors, I'm talking about.
Yes.
How do you
Well,
know they're gonna
Because he
accept it?
didn't do it, he just said they've been sending it home.
Is that what you do?
No, we spread out the hours, but at the end of the day, let's say 1 week is slow. The counselors doesn't get paid 35 hours. All of them get paid 30 hours. So I
take
play with the
5
hours so
hours.
everybody gets the same hours, more or less.
If you have a solution for that, that's fine.
Well, what I'm afraid of every year is a fight to get counselors and head counselors
And they're
and
not gonna come,
lifeguards.
they're not gonna come and work here.
Okay, if you start cutting hours to the counselors, they're not gonna come. That's like I said, it's up to you guys. I'm just telling you what's gonna happen because I've been there long enough to know.
Well, I need to know all the problems before I vote. And that's a problem we gotta consider.
Yeah.
And it's the first time we're doing it.
amount of counselors that you gotta have, which is the 7, right?
It depends on the kids.
Right,
We
7
always
kids
start
per
with 7 and a head counselor. That's the way we always start. 7 and a head counselor, which is normally what we use because it's 70 to 80 kids. Except with the field trip, then we got parents, volunteers that go, and but normally that's how we start.
Is this a liability for the county?
Yes.
You mean Central County?
Yeah, Senator.
Yes.
But if you register all the kids and they pay, you're gonna have an idea how many kids is gonna be attending depending on the amounts that pay. Then you're gonna know how many counselors you're gonna need.
Thank you.
It's just
That's
simple.
that's
But you
true.
have to register them, you have to tell them, this is what you're gonna need as payment, and the ones that pay, you know, you can count, they're gonna be there,
That's the
and
way
the
you would do
rest.
it.
No, it's true. But what he's asking me is, let's say 100 of them registered. Okay, the money's there, but on the second week, it's only 50 that arrive in the clubhouse. What do I do with the other counselors then? I just send them home?
Well, you might not want to because
You know?
you want to make it attractive to have employees.
Yeah.
You know, you have to.
Well, they're
make
gonna
it-
pay up front if they don't show up.
But he's asking me to send them home.
No,
If there's not enough
just in
kids.
case it fluctuates from the first month.
Excuse me,
to the
this
second.
is only gonna be done to upset the cost. It's not gonna cover. So Maria is right, this is only gonna upset the cost
Okay.
of our, we still won't have to spend X amount of dollars.
What's would the budget be?
With the
What would
budget
safety
issue.
net be?
So
$20,000.
Joe's idea is outstanding in my opinion, and whoever register pay, whoever don't register, don't pay.
All right.
Now,
And do they pay monthly
monthly?
or the whole amount?
No, not the whole amount, because there may be, some parents may not be able to afford to pay the full 2 months, but they can afford 1
1
month.
month.
Why don't you consider this? There's 8 weeks. Have the first 4 weeks paid, okay? And then you pay for the next 4.
That's what he's saying? Yeah.
Have 2 sessions, 1 session and the second session.
I second the motion.
Second session, you may not have the 50 kids, so you only need 5 counselors.
But
Exactly, then
what would
you-
the budget be? It's not gonna be $35,000.
Well, but that's
No.
$8,000.
No, and,
Or is it gonna come up to vote once the registrations have been done? Is it gonna fluctuate or is it gonna be?
Excuse me, I don't think nobody has, this is only gonna upset the cost. The budget amount is still there. So regardless, we still gonna spend the money. The only thing that this registration is gonna do is gonna upset, okay? Because, remember what, the report. We in a margin here, And if we don't save a little bit of money here and a little bit of money there, we're gonna have to vote on raising taxes. And I don't wanna raise taxes, but if we need the money, I'm gonna say 10% or whatever is needed. So,
Not only that, you're setting a precedence. This has never been done. Okay, we're doing many things this year that have never been done in Central County.
and look,
Okay,
and look
so-
where Central County was, man.
I know. So, the fact that we're gonna do something new and the parents are gonna listen and say, okay, we're paying for the first time and all that, you're gonna have a reaction. It's either gonna work or it isn't gonna work. And we need to know that.
So what does the parents wanna do, for us to raise the taxes so we can pay the 35?
This has nothing to do with taxes.
Yes, it does, because if we don't balance the budget,
Okay,
it's gonna have to increase.
but more important than balancing the budget, you are setting a precedent saying that from now on, like every other neighborhood, LaBelle, Clewiston, whatever, we're gonna set a standard that the parent has to pay. That's what you're doing. You're not gonna come back next year, I hope, and say it's gonna be free.
What, no?
A summer program, what? The summer program. Or we're gonna come back next year and say, no, it's gonna, no, you're setting a law.
Denise,
You're setting
I'm not
a
gonna argue
statement.
no more. I agree with Joe's idea, and if Joe makes a motion, I'm gonna second it, and then we're gonna vote on it. But if he's gonna start thinking, if the sun is gonna come out tomorrow, and this
You're
gonna...
not understanding what I'm saying. It's okay.
You gotta start somewhere.
That's what I'm saying. We're starting something new.
Because, like Liz said,
And we have to take our chances.
keep on giving out the free stuff, taxes have gotta go up.
You complain every year that we giving free this and free that. Every year is complaint. You have to do something about it. You're either gonna do it or you don't do it. You're gonna do it. If it fails, it fails. If it doesn't fail, we learned, and next year we do something new. You gotta take a chance. We have the money and the budget. This could offset it. You take a chance. The kids come, fine. They don't come, they don't come. And we close it.
We say $35,000.
Right. But you gotta look at it that way. There's no other way of looking at it.
You saved the 35,000.
So let's go. Motion so I can hear this.
Make a motion,
Go ahead.
$100 for the first session, and $100 for the second session.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Limit of kids?
Now we're gonna vote if nobody,
How many?
if it doesn't.
How
come
many
up-
children? Okay, if the numbers go less than what? Do we close the program down?
30, 50.
75.
75?
75 is a very
That's
high
too
number.
high number.
Well, you said that you agreed with him. That was what he had said before.
He said he had 100 and some kids.
And you said that 75 should be the cutoff point. That's what he said.
Well, it's 75.
He said he averaged what? What was it, the numbers that you said that you averaged?
It's a daily basic of 70 kids.
Just
So
say
you-
50, man, it'll be
Right, you
fair.
cannot put 70
Once
in.
you get the registration, you know what you got.
Right.
So if you register less than 50 children, there is no summer program.
Right.
Okay, and if that, the second month, when they have to come up with the second $100, you have less than 50 or 50, it's closed.
And by what date will they make that decision? How many weeks in before the?
On the third week.
By the third week?
By the third week, because they have to come up with the money for the fourth week.
And what ways are they advertising to school-age children that summer camp is gonna happen?
That's his.
Are they going to the schools, to the daycares?
Oh no, they go to the clubhouse and they find out. And also Facebook. No, believe me, the word
Rumor
of mouth.
control, rumor control in
Yes.
Ventura is better than the
Yes.
CIA intelligence.
Excuse me?
We got the website.
Yeah, you got the website.
Right. We got the website and we're gonna, and hopefully we're gonna have a Facebook also.
What about
Okay.
a shout out through the schools?
Yeah.
Well,
think that's-
I don't run any experience with the schools. You have a very good experience with the
So,
schools.
just to be clear, how many kids for the first month is the limit? 50.
No more than 75 and no less than 50.
So if I don't have 75 kids registered by the first month, there's no summer camp. All right.
You said
50.
Or 75 feet.
50.
50. Okay.
50 or less?
Well, if you're gonna have 75 registered and paid for,
Right.
You don't-
I'll make it
if you
simple.
don't have
I make it simple. I move 50. Anybody second that?
I'll second.
Okay, everybody in favor, I'm sorry.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Hey, wait a minute, that's my job. What are you doing?
No,
You're not the chair.
we're lingering.
No, we're not lingering on anything. You just wait your time. Same thing with adjournment. I adjourned this meeting. Not like you guys did last time to me.
Is that Montour residents?
Montour residents, we hope.
Yes, go to the residents.
Okay, so what number? 50 or 75?
We already, 50. I'll go with 50.
So that's two of you. And what do you say? I'll go with 50.
From Montour.
From Montour, yes. Yes.
That means you only need 5 councilors.
If I have kids from Miami, but the parents pay taxes,
They gotta pay also.
They have to live here.
You still got.
They gotta pay.
Summer
Yes.
camp, listen,
They have to
summer
pay.
camp is for the
we
children of
admit them,
Cultura.
right?
But they have to pay.
Yeah, they have to pay.
Do we admit them if the parents have a piece of land here? Okay.
They have to pay.
Okay.
Everybody, no free.
No free.
All right.
No freebies.
They're gonna.
So we don't have any more voting to do on this
Well,
topic?
yeah, now we gotta vote
On what?
we vote on the money, but if we vote on the 50 already?
Okay, now the motion should be about the numbers to be the cutoff number. So, let's go, motion.
What was that again?
Now we're gonna vote on what is the cutoff number for us to stop the program if we don't have enough children.
50.
We just said 50, we agreed on 50.
Right.
And to start on 52?
Right.
Oh, okay, all right, I understand that, okay. All right, the cutoff point will be 50.
50 or more.
Okay, so we don't have to vote on that.
One more thing.
Okay.
Okay, this is gonna be revenue that you're bringing in.
Right.
So you
Yes.
still need to, I guess, approve a line item change for the expenditure side of it. Like originally, because
We can't just leave it at bay in case something happens. I mean, that 35,000 that he's asking for?
well, I'm just saying,
No, he's right.
I mean, you don't
I
have,
hereby move that we allocate the 35,
I mean, it doesn't have to be the full 35, but just, you know, the idea of allocating something.
I hereby move 30,000 be allocated to the program if it happens.
At the beginning, okay.
Budget
Do I hear a
line
second?
item changes.
Do you hear a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're making history. The whole year we've been making history. Okay. Next,
As you notice, we have moved forward
yes.
a lot.
Let me ask Mr. Bennett something. I spoke to you a while ago. How much, well, actually, Mr. Boyd, how much did we spend on the garbage this last month? On the 2 containers out there?
I have to look it up, but I can look it up.
But roughly, you don't have an idea?
Maybe went green, 7,000.
7,000.
7,000.
Okay, now to Mr. For 4 tanks?
I think we should vote on that. I think we should vote on having a person there, to close up.
We're gonna start
gate.
that, just so you'll know, we're looking at this week, we get our new person in, hopefully Monday, special report. We gotta get a sign made, naturally, and what they'll have to do is they'll have to come in, prove that they're from here, and that they're not from outside or a contractor, and we'll open the gate and let them dump. And we're looking at probably putting somebody watching the gate Fridays and Saturdays.
Okay, we spoke about this, and I think I mentioned it to you about, is there any other way, like putting a ramp and using that dump truck we got to dump whatever comes into the dump truck, and one of our employees drive the garbage to the dump? How much could we save doing something like that?
I have gone to Cruise and they charge by the ton.
Well, but they also charge the driver and the container.
No, it's cheaper to have the containers than it is to do it ourselves, because we eliminate the labor involved in transporting the trash.
I don't see how that could be. I mean, the container, they're gonna charge the rent on the container.
No, they don't. They don't
It's
charge.
free?
Well, no, you allocate how many dumps, you pay by the dump, how many times you dump,
No, I don't think it's by the dump. I think it's by the weight that you take.
That's right.
It's always by the weight.
But it's by the weight that you
But
take.
every time they come get it,
Well,
that's when they charge us.
We're paying for that guy to come and pick up the container and take it away, and then, well, I imagine he brings an empty one with him, right? So he doesn't have to drive.
Sometimes they'll dump it, then bring it if there's more than one. You know.
So he doesn't come with an empty container to leave it?
If there's more than one,
Yeah.
it'll be dumped. We may come get one and then bring the full one back, you know, like that. But it depends on how many we have to dump, how many trucks they send to. Sometimes we may send more than one truck.
I have talked about this many times, I'm gonna talk to it again. What Mr. Kelly's doing to controlling the dump during the daylight hours is fine. But if we do not put somebody at the gate on Saturday and Sunday, I keep saying it, that I see commercial people, contractors, dumping. So if you don't put somebody at the gate between the dumping hours of 8 to whatever, all right? It's gonna keep happening. Cameras don't work, and the only thing they do is gonna record the crime. I think, AJ, you have seen what I'm saying. So if we want to allocate the money and we want to secure our dump, which I don't have a problem from any residents of Ventura that has any whatever and he wants to dump it, that's why they're there. But I've been saying it for over a year. I'm upset because I keep seeing it. I live nearby, I drive by, I see the U-Hauls, I see commercial trucks with the sign on the side dumping the stuff that they have charged Jose $300 to dump. So instead of taking it to Cluston and paying, $500 to dump, they dump it over here.
But that's what I was trying to ask him. Is there no way of knowing? I mean, how many tons do they haul away in them containers, roughly? 10 tons, 8 tons?
It varies because we mash the crap out of it to get more in there before we ever call.
Right, since we already agreed, they charge us by the tonnage.
But most of the time, what is it, Josh? Somewhere around 10, 12 tons probably?
12, yeah, and they can fill a dump truck easily in a day, easily.
And one day.
Especially on
In
Fridays
one
and
day,
Saturdays.
if it's on a weekend, it's terrible. I mean,
We need somebody Friday and Saturday.
The thing is, $8,000 in a month is quite a big bill. If we could cut that in half, that's $4,000. We're talking about running short on cash now, which is one thing that I said a long time ago, before you got here, was a way of start cutting down on our expenses, because there were people coming in here and charging outrageous amounts of money, and they never fixed anything. Everything was always broken. But yeah, we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars. If we're spending $8,000 and we could knock that out by half, I mean, because I know the driver's not coming here for free, and I know whoever the company is that's leaving them containers, they charging us for them containers. And if we got a dump truck that's sitting there and it's not being put to use, why can't we use that dump truck to haul our own garbage away? Even if we got to go once a day. How long is it going to take? A couple of hours to dump? Go to the dump, empty out the truck, and come back over here. How long could that take?
Fernando, have you seen our dump truck?
Yes, the great one.
Have you seen our dump truck?
Yes.
You expect that dump truck that's got walls on it, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 18 inches?
No, I'm not talking about that dump truck. I'm talking about the gray one, the dump truck. Or is it not here anymore?
Well, it's not here anymore. The only dump truck that I see here has got 18
I'm not
inch
talking about
walls.
the yellow one.
No, there's like a big bluish looking Mac or something.
Right. That's the one I'm talking about. That's what, about 10 yards on that dump?
Probably a little more. In fact, we just got it running today.
You finally got it? Okay, see, that thing was sitting there for, I don't know how long.
But we got it running with the intent because we're getting further away on the roads so we can carry more material without making so many trips.
Josh?
I think there's two, in my opinion only, there's two issues that we're dealing with here with the dumpsters. One is lack of knowledge. As we get more and more people that move in, and we've had a high fluctuation of people moving in the last, year, A lot of people don't realize that they can put the garbage out in front of their house. They're
I'm working on that.
These people are telling me that no, the garbage people are not picking up, and we're constantly telling them, look, by law they have to because you're paying the taxes. Okay. Their second one is I understand what you're saying about taking the truck, but that's a lot of loss of man hours and also diesel and wear and tear of running that truck back and forth daily to a dump just to dump it. When we could be using that truck and that person to make our roads better out here.
Well, yeah, but if it's gonna save us $4,000, it's not gonna take more than an hour to get to Clovis.
But my point is why don't we take 2 dumpsters away, and once they fill up, you lock the gates and you have to put your stuff out in front of your house, not here.
They should, I think it's a lack of education.
Exactly.
You've seen me give out flyers. I make out flyers on Tuesdays when they're distributing food. I go to the churches and I give out flyers. And people still don't put their garbage on their in front of the house.
I had a lady today actually call, like probably around 4:30, and she asked, you know, because she don't get off in time, blah blah. I told her I'd hold the gate 5 more minutes for her, and she pretty much told me that by law we have to let her dump that garbage in there. And I'm going, no ma'am, I
should have locked that gate.
Well, but I'd already, she called ahead and I'd already told her that, so. Exactly.
From my understanding, that's a courtesy.
Exactly.
That's a courtesy that the county
Exactly.
established
But
a
she
long
don't,
time ago for the benefit
people don't
of the
realize that. They think that we're mandatory, that we have to have those open.
No.
They don't realize that
By
that's a
law,
courtesy.
by law, they pay the taxes for the trash to somebody else. We don't make any money out of
And
it.
that's another thing.
So as the board is doing new things and you're setting new precedents, as you're doing with the school kids and stuff like that, so why don't we do that as well? Say, you start charging.
Yep.
Because again, if not, you're gonna have to raise up taxes.
That's right.
So as you can see what we're paying a lot more, and these dumpsters going than.
I personally believe, sir, I don't want to charge any more than we have to survive. Okay, I understand your point. But I believe that if we reduce the amount of contractors dumping the trash there, okay, that I don't know how much it's gonna drop. When I see the contractors, I go and I come back and the trash is full. Because they come with a big truck and they dump all that. If you stop all that, the dumping, of course, is gonna be less. Education the people. But we can't be charging people for everything. It's not my presidency.
We have to run this as
I
a business.
respect your opinion, sir.
Yes, sir. And I respect yours as well.
Okay, but I believe as a courtesy. You know why? Because if we charge, they're not gonna pay, they're gonna dump it down the street, and then they're gonna cost us more money.
And the same way with
Same
the
with the
kids.
construction.
And the same way with the kids. But as you can see, Louis, I think everybody in this room can see, we are under a growth again. I'm seeing properties being cleared everywhere. That trash pile, that dumpster area,
It's gonna get bigger. It's gonna get bigger.
Exactly. So that's
I
more,
know it's gonna
so
get
that means more money is gonna come out of our funding. So we're gonna have to do something to, like you say, offset it.
Yeah, but it's the more people to move in, the more taxes we're gonna get. So I hope we have to dump all those more dumpers every
We
day.
get the taxes from them.
Okay, so, and I agree with that, because I was gonna say that earlier. That means more people coming in, more people paying taxes. That means our revenues and our budget should be going up.
Yes, should be.
The key, guys, I've been saying it for over a year, control. If we can keep it closed during the day, and the manager would open the gate in and out, and then on the weekends, we can use our own employees
Yes,
to work
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday, you know,
Not
on a
Sunday.
rotating basis.
So you're paying overtime.
Huh?
You're paying overtime now, right?
It's still cheaper.
I'm just saying, that's still a
Yeah,
cost.
either that or we get somebody else just to do
We
that.
may consider,
for
I
Friday
even
and
brought it
Saturday.
up once, we can hire people, you know, part-time flexible.
Yeah.
At a, you know,
But that's-
let's say $10 an hour.
Monday through Thursday, working hours only.
That's how I would do it.
Well-
Monday through Thursday, working hours
Yeah,
only.
if you
No,
have
because a
no-
lot
No,
of
you need
people
it.
work.
They're gonna dump it
A lot of
outside.
people are working,
Yes.
and they work on the
I know.
weekends.
I I know, so imagine if you do Monday through
The
Friday,
average,
it's not
the
gonna work.
average worker for this house.
But
only gets
how
the
can we
merch out of
talk
it.
about picking up the garbage and putting it outside and they're supposed to pick it up? My regular garbage right now as we speak is sitting out there since Tuesday.
I don't know why,
And
did you
the
call
regular
them?
garbage,
They broke down,
and I
they
have-
did break down.
Yeah, but that's the excuse I get every month.
Well, I had
Every
another
single-
driver
I get
come
that.
to my house
That's-
and he
that's
told
what
me
I was-
the.
Cookie got tired of listening to me about the complaints, and I have the phone number of everybody in the county and the garbage department. Yesterday I called them and she said, leave it out there, they're gonna pick it up. Go,
Today.
the garbage is there. My next door neighbor,
I saw someone.
150 South Garbage Pump, Sergio, he comes and throws his garbage there every day because he's tired of putting the garbage out there and sitting out there
And
and
that's
pick it
what,
up.
that's what I was explaining to you, the
And
lady
that's
said
the regular garbage.
the garbage people are not picking their garbage up.
They're not.
Then we have to complain.
So then we, yeah.
We need the
The board
addresses.
needs to complain.
Right, we need
Because
the
I
addresses.
complain and they don't do nothing about it.
But if you don't give it to us, if you don't pick up the phone and call
Yep.
the manager and say, put me down on the list of garbage that has not been picked up today. Let's say you call Wednesday morning. Wednesday afternoon, we're calling the company up and say, listen, we have 15 people or 30 people that you did not pick up and we have their names and everything.
And
Yeah,
it's
that's
both, and it's both, it's the recycling and the regular garbage, both.
I don't recycle anymore because they don't come to me. I don't. I told them.
have to be
There you go.
Where are we sending them at, I don't know?
Okay, lawyer. Well, Dwayne, do that this week, please, if you can. Monitor it, close it, and they have to come to you and we'll work on the weekends, we'll see what we do.
They gotta put the garbage in the dumpsters. That's still on the ground, ain't no good.
Yes.
Also, we need to get a sign made about the white goods. I noticed there wasn't one also just today.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Talking about, I guess there's a rule that they're not allowed to put white goods, which is like refrigerators and
Yes.
stuff like that. I was misunderstood. I thought there was a sign out there, but
There's
not.
no.
But then again, we're talking about them throwing trash on the ground out there, not in the dumpsters. There's a 4x8 sign out there that tells you in English and Spanish.
And they still do it.
And they still do it because
Control.
there's no law there.
But the people
Control,
getting
that's
inside
what
the
it takes.
containers to get garbage out, to
Yes.
get metal and stuff, and then they throw the garbage out to get what they want,
I
and they
saw
leave
that.
it outside, because I've seen that.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, the main thing that John wanted me to address were this upcoming deadlines for the budget, which was addressed earlier. This was also emailed to you earlier today. I printed it and I just circulated it, and these are deadlines that need regarding publishing meetings that weren't initially published, because it has to be addressed that it is the budget meeting, which is designated on here. So these are coming coming close to being due, like next month.
Are they gonna be regular meetings or workshops?
What I, is that the first one in May should be a workshop, or it can be at the meeting, and it, just states that's the draft budget. Then it will have to be, adopted, a tentative budget will need to be adopted and posted. And then any revisions, and then of course the final adoption, as well as then of course posting it on the website. And these are the deadlines that,
Okay. So, Mr. Kelly has to get the.
Yep, and,
For me.
John Boy, I know Jack has spoken to you about this as well, the budget deadlines.
We may have to have some workshops, these are, actual board meeting things.
Well,
I don't
and like
hear
I
you.
said, a couple of them are already noticed as budget. I think there's one or two that were not. So it just depends on how it's gonna be handled, or when it's gonna be discussed.
I'm just saying, in addition to these meetings at the board meeting, we may need to have an initial workshop or something.
I don't hear you, John.
I'll just point out that we had, workshop meetings to develop the
Yes.
concept of the
Last year.
budget we're gonna have. These are meetings at board meetings, so we probably need to have
If
something
you remember
started.
if you remember last year, I suggested we do a workshop in June, July, and August,
Right.
just on the budget.
Right.
We done the general budget, we done the roads budgets, we done the clubhouse budget, all on a different meeting.
Right, yeah. But it looks like we need to have
Well,
one
the
before
final-
May 23rd.
Yeah, the final budget should be adopted in August.
Right.
So we have, the way Jack and John have done the deadlines was to do it either workshop or meeting sometime in May, and then have the tentative budget done in June, and then July, conduct a budget meeting as well, which would adopt or develop the final budget, make whatever changes, and then at the August meeting, you guys would adopt the final budget and ultimately be posting to the website.
So it's really three meetings of discussion, and then the last one will be to adopt it.
Adopting it.
And I agree with you. I think it should be workshop.
And
Instead
like
of
I said,
regular
I
meeting,
know that
because
they're,
this is a regular meeting. Look at the time already. So if we make it into a workshop, we just focus on that and nothing else.
and like I said, and I don't know off the top of my head, or it's on here, but like, for example, the July 25th meeting is a regular meeting, but it's already noticed as a budget meeting, so it doesn't need to be republished. If it's related to the budget, it's gotta be segregated, and in our annual meetings that we did in the resolution back in, I think it was December, we allotted certain meetings for the budget.
And that's one of them.
And that is one of them. And it says, like, same with the August one, that one we,
And that one too.
right.
So then
June is, I think May's the only one wherein we would have to, republish.
And how about June 27? No, not a workshop. A regular meeting.
It was published
It was already
for
as a
the
regular?
regular meeting that it would be discussing the tentative budget. Now, that's not to say you guys can't have another workshop if that's what you choose to do, but this is how it's already noticed.
We have to notice a workshop meeting.
Yes, a week before. Is that all?
And then, of course, the conference, the FASD conference that I sent the materials, that was something that he felt that Mr. Kelly may be interested in attending. I know it's fairly soon because it's in June, but it's something that he thought he may benefit from because it discusses a lot of the deadlines and all that other stuff. I can't remember his name. He's going to be a speaker as well. So I just provided that information as well. And Salsa Group has already been discussed. And
that's it? Okay. I don't know why I'm always the last one.
Wait a minute, I got one. If you want to be the last one, let me go first. Oh, no, you said it. You said it. You said it. On the workshop we had about the reservoir, right? I want to make a motion now that we allocate the $12,000, no, it's $10,000 for the police officers off duty. That will cover 52 weekends. Not necessarily every weekend, sir, you can use it, but if it gets approved, I want to have that, let's say $12,000 to use at your discretion on the holidays, and on the discretion of the police officers when there are more activities. On the 3-day weekends, for Friday and Saturday, we may skip a weekend, but I just want to make sure that they see the police officers
On the long weekend.
on the long weekend present here at the gate. So I hereby move that we allocate $12,000 for the budget for it's 52 weekends, but it's not going to be used every weekend. You can use 2 days, 3 days as necessary. But I want to have that money ready for the next holiday to start controlling the reservoir.
It's a start.
Huh?
It's a start.
So I hereby move that we allocate $12,000 to the security of duty officers, state or
It was 10. Put it up to 12. No, he's asking me why 12, and I said that it was 10 and you put it up to 12 now.
right.
So everybody votes no.
Well, let's go, we're not gonna spend 12, okay? But I don't wanna go underneath and be short if we need it. So if we don't need it, the money's gonna stay in the bank, it's not gonna go nowhere. So I hereby move that we allocate the 12,000 for the year that covers 52 weekends, or 52 visits, or whatever you wanna call it. And for the manager and the popo to agree on the days that is needed.
Now, remember that, AJ's being paid by the Hill Foundation?
No, this is
This is
off-duty
extra.
officers,
Okay.
off-duty
All right.
officers pay, doesn't have nothing to do
Okay.
with whoever's getting paid. The lady, the lieutenant is getting paid by the state. If she comes to work with AJ, or she comes by herself because AJ cannot come or whatever, doesn't make a difference.
All right,
We
listen.
have to issue the check. I tried to call Steve today,
Make the
but he
motion.
was too busy to call me back.
So y'all don't want it to be employees that might wanna make overtime?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
So you don't want it to be any employees that might wanna make overtime?
No. We discussed that already, okay? I don't wanna put an employee in that gate every weekend to have a confrontation with somebody who's been drinking. They go by my house, and I can smell the dope, and I can see with a bottle of rum in my hands. I don't want those night riders to have a confrontation with one of our employees, and then the liability is double. So I want a police officer who can put you down and put you in the car and take you bye-bye. So, if on the rest of the weekends, the manager's discretion, he wants to put somebody there for a few hours to whatever, that's different, okay?
How many hours do you estimate?
How many deputies you're
How many
estimating?
hours?
Is 8 hours, 8 hours.
At the rate of 22.50?
I haven't touched
I'm sorry?
mine, and I
At
want
what
your
rate?
date.
I tried to call the sheriff today to get a confirmed rate, but my figuring was a 25, it's not 25.
You're not gonna get it
Right.
at 25. Henry County's paying $35 special details.
Exactly.
On an officer. That's that's Henry County.
When did they start that?
It's 35. You guys charge $35 for every special detail per hour.
Oh.
Per hour?
No, we don't go 35.
Yeah, I know, I understand. That's their special details for any off-duty officers, $35 an hour.
Okay, so I'm glad I went 12. Doesn't mean that we got, what, 13 holidays, three-day holidays a year? Huh?
It's 350, it's $35 an hour?
That's a lot.
Okay. Are you finished, or are you making a motion?
I already made a motion.
So who seconds it?
We got 12 holidays.
Do I hear a second or no?
Longer.
No? Then we'll have to take it to another meeting? You gonna think about it?
If you guys want to control, guys, if you guys want to control the reservoir, if you want to protect our hunting, if you want to protect what's happening back there with all the trash and everything, the same thing is going to happen. If you do not have control, especially by a law-abiding officer, okay? By an officer of the law. I don't want to hear then later on complaints of, oh, the reservoir is this, the reservoir is that. We need to protect that. Believe it or not, I've seen people taking tires back there. All right? And who's going to stop it? One of the employees? The manager? No. I've seen people taking refrigerators. I see people taking washing machines to shoot them.
$36,000.
Okay?
Will you change your permit and your price?
$36,000 a year if we do it at $35 an hour. With 52 weekends.
In 3 months you'll go through.
Well, we don't, not all the weekends, because not all weekends are 3 days or 4 day weekends. So we gotta find out how many are the 3 day weekends. Yes.
One question, so all that money is coming out of the taxpayers?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Do we know if people from outside of Murtuta have access to
Yes.
to the
Yes, we
land?
do.
So-
That's why we try to put a stop to it.
So, that's not going to end, for
you know,
It's not
because
gonna end if we don't do anything.
If we don't
about
put
it.
a stop to it, it's getting worse, worse.
definitely.
If anybody don't believe me, you can ask AJ, or you can drive out here Saturday morning, and you're gonna see 5 to 7 trailers, load of people from Harlem, from Miami, from West Palm Beach. One guy opens the door, and everybody drives in.
Now, that is an activity that is already happening. What if we charge them? What if we make it?
We don't want outsiders here.
We don't want
It's for
outsiders
us.
here. We don't want outsiders.
So far, we don't.
Why don't we just chump up the money we done spent for the lock and keys there and change it now? Send a notice to everybody that's got one and change it.
We could do that too.
Chump it up. Give
You're
the
gonna
people that's
stop
already
it,
paid the
guys.
key.
If you don't put a police officer
I
up
still
there.
agree with that too, but I'm saying
He
the
says
only way
we
you're
got
gonna
also.
change it is you change that lock, because there's keys that don't belong from out of towners. They come in here every weekend.
He's saying
There's
change it and do what
ex-employees
you
from
say.
If
different
you
counties
change
that's
the
got
key,
keys,
if
they
you
come in
change the
here.
key, whoever is letting that individual back there with the old key is gonna let him in with the new key, guys. It's a fantasy that you're gonna control that gate with a key. No. Bootlegged keys are being done, all right? And one guy comes in, look at Facebook.
Yeah.
Look it up, right in Montura. And they even advertise people here, I don't know if they're charging or they're not charging, and then bringing in all those yahoos, and then eventually, if that gets polluted, okay, the Game and Fish Commission or environmental, we're gonna get in a big problem. Let's stop it by putting a police officer at the gate. At least it would deter X amount of percentage. But if you keep fantasizing to change the key and put a camera, the camera only records the crime.
Okay, so pass it, put him out there Saturday with a roster taking keys. Because I know that's what's gonna happen. If you put the deputy out there Saturday and checking the roster, he's gonna take a bunch of keys that day.
Exactly, and that would stop or this slow down the activity. And once the word gets around, I bet you anything that if the word gets around that AJ told 10 bikes this weekend, and man, don't go there, man. That popo's gonna get you. That's it.
Which is, by the way, why I'm coming here. That already happened at the hump in Florida City. There's no places to go off-roading in Miami, and
Because of the
everybody's
same
going-
reason, and I don't want it to happen here. And I can see it coming if we don't put a stop to it. The hunting is gonna stop, all right? The recreation, the people, the residents that go camping, there's a whole bunch of people here. They go camping out there on the weekends. So,
Read your deed.
if you guys don't want a second promotion for the money, I really don't wanna hear no more about the keys and the camera and the thing, that's it, you know?
With $12,000 allocated, we could have them on 4-day weekends, because it's $700 a weekend.
Denise, doesn't have to be, I don't wanna tell my enemy what they are gonna attack.
That's the time when you get the most crime.
Right.
When you get most of the people on the 4-day
Right, but
weekend.
I don't wanna advertise that. I don't wanna tell my enemy what days they're gonna attack.
Well, nobody sees this because this is not being filmed and given out.
No. But I don't wanna say when. It's gonna be at the discretion of the manager. He may come out here on a Wednesday night. I don't know. It's a random. Let's say that it's a random time they're gonna
So
be
it's
here.
$12,000 for that.
Yes.
And that's it. So
Yes.
we have to see how we're gonna use that $12,000.
The thing is, how long is it gonna last? $12,000 or $35
On
an hour?
certain weekends. On certain, it's 36,400 if we do it 52 weeks. Right. And we don't have $36,000 to do that.
And like I said, we can always put the guys that work here, they don't have to say nothing. All they're doing is checking keys and IDs. Making a check. They don't say nothing. They come back, give it to the manager. The manager gives it to y'all, and then y'all the ones take the keys.
Okay, when you get in a confrontation with somebody and you're gonna tell that individual, no, excuse me, sir, excuse me. If you tell that individual been drinking or smoking pot or smoking coke, give me the key, or let me have that key, sir. He's gonna put a foot up you know where. A police officer can stop
I'm just
it.
doing the key thing, blah, blah, and if he says you know, you put a check. Put somebody out there that knows Montura.
All right. So, is there a second? No? So that means that we think about this and we come back to it?
No,
We
I want to
revisit
talk
it?
about it no more. I don't want to hear about the
Okay.
reservoir. I don't want to hear about the reservoir anymore.
You're gonna hear about it because I'm gonna bring it up as many times as I feel that is necessary. And he could bring it up and the others could bring it up. You might not vote on it, but you cannot tell us not to discuss it. Mr. Napoles.
Man, we've
I have a lot to
been discussing it, we've been
discuss, and I
discussing
haven't
it
even
for
gotten
over
to
a
it.
year. How many times do we need a discussion?
Till-
We need to move forward.
Till
put an
you
end
get
to
a
it.
second motion and you get a vote. I did that for a year and a half and CCOM, every meeting I came to. No one listened to me. The board didn't listen to me, a year and a half. Did I go away? I'm here. I'm here as a supervisor, crazy, but if I wasn't a supervisor, I'd be here as CCOM. And we're persistent to make Montura better and make this organization better. Otherwise, you don't belong here and I don't belong here. And just because we don't agree doesn't mean that we're wrong.
I'm not saying that, madam.
You say you don't want to hear anybody talk about this
I don't want to hear it
anymore.
because I'm tired. We're changing the key.
I want to hear it as many times we need to hear it in order to come to something.
The only way.
I don't have to vote.
And for the record, whoever's taking the minutes, for the record, I want to be known that the only way we're going to stop the yahoos from entering the reservoir is going to be by the presence of an officer who has the authority to arrest them or tell him not to come back or whatever discretion he wants to use. I do not want to put an employee in that gate, checking for anything.
How we consider armed private security, I don't know how much it would save, but.
It doesn't have the power it doesn't have the power to stop the people. The only thing a security officer is nowadays, worked for the county for many years, is a security monitor. If he sees something, police officer, I need you to come down. That's it. And that is
an employee doing that.
Josh, before y'all close on this situation, I know y'all can't come to an agreement on an officer. What about just go ahead and giving it to an employee, let him know that, look, there is a possibility that something could happen, and it's up to them totally if they're willing to do it or not. And let's just try, since we're trying new things, just do a roster and just go like that. I mean, granted, now, I know if something happens, you can't take them to jail and so forth,
But he could call the officer.
you see what I'm saying? We could kind of work together. It's something, it's trying something.
It's trying something.
Yeah.
It's trying
Something
something.
besides, keep on spending money.
Because you're gonna have to raise taxes, you spend money, Lord.
Right. You can't do both. Okay.
When that employee gets hurt, I'm gonna say, I told you so. Thank you.
Yeah, but they can get hurt working.
It's a business.
Yeah.
Are we finished with you? Okay, I have too many topics to talk about, and I don't think anybody wants to stay here longer than this. I don't see anything here that is dire, except for maybe a discussion regarding clubhouse improvement, which was the emergency power / AC to get a request for proposal. Is that the right RFP? An RFP. Why am I saying that? Because it'll take time. By the time we get the money from FEMA, if we haven't done this, we don't know what to do. We're going to start maybe in 3 or 4 months. Can we get the secretary or whoever does that, the request for a proposal on a improvement of the clubhouse after the hurricane we had, which will be having an emergency power / AC. The emergency power will be a generator to get power into that building so that we could have a generator and that building will be up and running if we have another
Madam
which
Chair,
we probably will.
Madam Chair, we
haven't
already
finished.
have that approved already, and
When do we
he's
approve
got, the engineer has submitted it, and we have not moved on it. We're waiting on it.
That's why I put it here. Everything I put here, we have not moved on. We have discussed it before, we have not moved on. That's why I want to take the time of the audience to hear me say this again, and if you want, I'll stop. and I wanna present it, and the next meeting, I wanna be the first one to present when it comes to supervisors' discussion, not the last one. Another thing that I need is for the accounting office or another one of the supervisors to get on the list for the bank. Because last week, we had a problem because the accounting company could not sign a check that is not from First Bank, right? That's what Amy told me. You two could only sign for checks from First Bank, and we had checks that were not from First Bank. So we had a, you were very critical that day, remember? You had something surgery done, and you were disturbed. I think we need one more
I thought we
person.
already voted on having the rights of the two of the accounting firms to go down to the bank and make a.
They only have one bank, and that's
But
what I'm telling you.
we made a motion, and it was approved, authorizing the accounting firm.
They didn't do it.
Well, that's not my fault.
They told me that they only have for First Bank. Mr.
It is not our
Mr.
fault.
Boyd, can you and Amy get on the other bank? Because I'm gonna be taking vacation soon, maybe. He was out 3 weeks or whatever, right? An emergency. I could have an emergency next weekend, and he was out with an operation. I'm asking you officially, can we have you and Amy on another to cover both banks so that it doesn't happen again?
Madam Chair, listen to me, please. We already voted on it. They already have the rights to go to the bank.
They didn't do it.
Well, that's not our fault.
First
That's
bank
his
is where all
fault.
the checks are really written. I mean, mostly we use bank transfers out of Center State, but we'll get.
Can you
put
do
on
that?
Center State, that's fine.
Okay, all right, and I'm going to close the meeting since, it's not fair to the audience and it's not fair to all of you being here. And next time, I'm gonna be the first one on the agenda out of the supervisors.
But I thought you
don't
said you
mind.
wanted to be last. Didn't you say a little while ago that you wanted to be last?
No, you misunderstood me. Do I have a motion for adjournment? You make a motion? Any second? I haven't, do we have to vote on it? Yes, we do. Those in favor? How about you?
What?
Are you in favor of adjournment?
Yes.